This is a, a review of a book by Andrew Martin, Play the Berry Attack. Now you will ask me, what is the berry attack? Well, you can see from the figure here that is something like a d4, knight f6, knight f3, g6, bishop f4, d5, and knight c3. Let's see it here on the board. d4, knight f6, knight f3, g6, knight c3, d5, and bishop f4. So this is the berry attack. The book is filled with more than 135 games. At the end of the book there is a very useful index of variation that you can use in case you play correspondence game and you want to find right away the line that you should play. I will show you game 50 against Shirov, not because it's a great example, because the thing is that Shirov wins. Shirov is black and wins. But the point is that the author is not afraid to show you that you can lose the game, because yes, you can play the opening perfectly like a computer, but then if you don't continue to play the middle game like a computer or the end game, you are going to lose. Okay. However, this the fact that the author has put more than 130 games show you that there are wealth of example to cover everything black can do. Okay. d4, knight f6, knight f3, g6, bishop f4, bishop g7, knight c3, d5, queen d2, c5. So this game was between N. Boccia and E. Shirov. It was played in Rio Grande 2021. Okay. Here there is a diagram and it says this is a very sharp answer to the Tarzan attack. Black plays in Grunfeld style, starting aggressive action himself. D takes c5. White accepts the invitation to complicate a moderately dangerous course against Shirov. Here it says that bishop h6 is probably not so good and is dubious. Okay, so don't play bishop takes h6. Now, notice that there is also another possibility, that is e3 instead of d takes c5, and that's more sensible. Okay, so you have a possibility also in that case, but d takes c5 is what the author prefers. Queen a5, knight e4, and this is a kind of interesting. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think, yeah, that we can see why this berry attack is clearly a sharp weapon. And okay, so there is also another possibility here, bishop e5, and there are some complications and it's more critical for black. So knight a4, and here is queen takes d2, knight e takes d2, knight a6, e4, knight takes c5. With effortless ease, black has obtained an excellent game. Okay, so this is definitely very interesting, but it means that knight e4 wasn't the move to play. So let's return back a second and let's see what white should have played. Okay, so this is why I like Andrew Martin. It's because he's a very practical author, and he shows you game after game after game. I like to see the games because I believe that I can remember them better. But this is the point. Black just played queen a5, you are white, you need to find the right continuation, okay? It seems that the right continuation in this position was bishop e5. And here there are two main lines, okay? So let's try, instead of watching all the game, because the guy loses in 24 moves against Shirov, let's try to understand what should have been done here. For example, he continues with castle, okay? But what happens if black plays knight c6? Well, after knight c6 there is knight takes d5, queen takes d2, knight takes d2, okay? Knight takes e5, knight c7, king d8, knight takes a8, bishop e6, e3, king d7, bishop b5, knight c6, knight b6, a takes b6, c takes b6. And when white has a lot of pawn, this is in fact white has all the pawns, but from what we see here there is a kind of imbalance, right? Black has 4 minor pieces, white has 2, white has the rooks, one rook more than black. So again, I think here you need obviously to play this against an engine and try, maybe don't put the engine at full strength, but try to see what you should play here. Okay, now let's return back to 7 bishop e5 and see the other continuations here, because I'm curious to see how it works. Okay, okay, so we were here, black played queen a5. In the game white made the mistake to play knight e4, not so good. The right move was bishop e5. And now instead of knight c6 we see what happens after castle, okay? Bishop takes f6, e takes f6, and knight d5, knight takes d5. Is far more critical with black retaining compensation after queen takes c5. How much compensation is the question? But it seems that on the 7th move there is also another sharp move that is not bishop e5, and I would like to show you here, because we see how good the author is at pointing out the critical moment. So he has made in a sense the homework for us and help us to identify where the problem is and why. And he gives at the right amount and length of the variation to show you why it works or it doesn't. So I'm going back again, okay? Okay, so at the moment we have seen two things. Knight e4, not good. Bishop e5, it seems good. But there is also another possible line that it's a sharp move. e4. e4, it can continue with d takes e4, knight takes e4, queen takes d2, knight e takes d2, and now there is knight b d7, bishop b5, pinning the knight, and it follows with a6, bishop takes d7, and it seems white could also play bishop a4, and here there is another line. Okay, knight takes d7, very interesting, because it doesn't open the diagonal for the bishop but open this diagonal. long castle, knight takes c5, taking back the pawn, knight c4, bishop g4, pinning this knight, knight b6, rook d8, rook takes d8, king takes d8, rook d1, king e8, bishop e3, knight d7, knight takes d7, bishop takes d7, and is bishop d4, f6, knight d2, bishop c6, f3, king f7. And black owns the bishop pair and the central pawn majority. Small things, but he went on to win in 48 moves in the game Estrada Nieto versus Daniele Vocaturo Internet Blitz in 2020. So I think this was clearly the critical point one should stop and analyze the game. And now I will go back to that position. Okay, so now we return back to the main game. Eventually check all the sub-variants that are put in this game by the author, because it did a good analysis. So it was knight e4, knight takes d2, so sorry, queen takes d2, knight e takes d2, knight e6, e4, and knight takes c5. With effortless ease, black has obtained an excellent game. Okay, e takes d5. Many would have chosen e5 instead of e takes d5 because it would give white a chance to complete the development. Okay, but he did this, so that's what there is. Knight takes d5, bishop e5, castle, bishop takes g7, king takes g7, bishop c4, rook d8, a3, knight b6, bishop a2, and bishop f5. White has lost the initiative, and that is a serious business against Shirov. The game continued with rook c1, rook c8, knight e5, f6, knight e c4, knight takes c4, knight takes c4, b5, b4, b takes c4, b takes c5, rook takes c5, c3, and rook e5, king f1, bishop d3, king g1, and the last move of the game is rook b8. White can surely play better than this, but 5c5 is worth serious consideration. Okay, so that was something to take into consideration. And of course, there are a lot of other games that are worth watching. The next one, for example, game 51 is Jobava against Vasquez, Internet Blitz. I hope you will enjoy this game, eventually practice this opening repertoire, because Andrew Martin is generally a very good teacher for the openings.